She walked into the hotel in sneakers with a confirmed reservation, and they turned her away without a second glance. Less than 24 hours later, she returned as the new owner of the entire building. Sabria Varnell stood outside the Belridge Regent Hotel in downtown Birmingham, Alabama. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Confirmation received. The reservation had been made under her assistant's name, like always, not to hide, just to avoid the noise. Cleaner, simpler, fewer questions. Her driver pulled away, leaving her in front of the hotel's polished limestone exterior. It wasn't the tallest building on the block, but it carried itself like it was. Double doors, navy-suited doormen, and a glossy black awning with gold trim. It looked like the kind of place that cared more about appearances than people. Sabria adjusted the strap on her carry-on, nodded to the doorman, and stepped inside. The lobby was pristine. White marble floors, a massive crystal chandelier overhead, stale perfume flowing through the vents. Everything curated, nothing warm. A young couple sipped cocktails by the fireplace. A woman clicked past in bright red heels. Sabria had seen it all before. At the front desk stood a young woman with blonde hair and a forced smile. Her name tag read Callie. She didn't look up at first, too busy tapping at her keyboard, or pretending to. Sabria offered a polite smile. Reservation under Amina Travers. Callie glanced up, her eyes scanning Sabria like she was out of place. One moment, she said, voice flat. She typed slowly, deliberately, then she frowned. I'm sorry, I don't see a reservation under that name. Are you sure it's for tonight? Sabria showed her the email confirmation. Callie barely looked. Right. Strange. We're fully booked, unfortunately. There's a motel 15 minutes from here if you need a place. Could you double-check the name? Sabria asked calmly. I've checked everything, Callie replied, her tone clipped, her smile artificial. Sorry. Just then, another couple walked up to the desk. Callie's voice transformed. Welcome to the Belridge Regent. Do you have a reservation? Yes, under Devon Marks, the man replied. Callie found the name instantly and handed them 2 keys with cheerful enthusiasm. Enjoy your stay. Sabria stepped aside. No reaction, no protest. She wasn't shocked. This wasn't the first time. Not this lobby, but this moment. And she never wasted energy on places that treated dignity like an option. She walked out into the cool evening air, dialing her assistant as she went. They shut me out, she said simply. There was a pause. Want me to reschedule the meeting? Sabria looked back at the glowing hotel sign. Number, I'll be back in the morning. But that night wasn't over, and what happened next would shift far more than just hotel reservations. She rolled her suitcase down Fifth Avenue, toward a modest building tucked between newer storefronts. The Harwood Inn. It was small, family-run, the kind of place she remembered from her early days in the city. It didn't try to impress. It just welcomed you. She rang the bell. An older man in glasses and a sweater vest opened the door with a warm smile. Evening, ma'am. Room for one? You're in luck, he added. Last one just freed up. Inside, the air smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. Newspaper clippings lined the walls. Local heroes, school events, a ribbon-cutting photo from 1963. No polish, no pretense, just people. As she signed in, her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant. Confirmation received. Belridge sale finalizes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Want a car ready? Sabria smiled. The timing was poetic. Yes, she typed back. And call Brandon. Have the transition files ready. She climbed the narrow staircase to her room. The key was metal, not digital. Solid, real. Inside it was cozy. Beige walls, a creaky writing desk, and a bed that looked clean and safe. She sat on the edge, slipped off her sneakers, and ran her fingers through her braids. She wasn't angry, just focused. She opened her laptop and pulled up the transition binder. The Belridge Regent had once been the pride of the district, but years of bad management, overpriced packages, and a scandal involving a city official and a bathtub full of champagne had left it weak. That's where her firm came in. Holden Finch Partners specialized in fixing what others broke. Sabria wasn't about making promises. She was about making plans and executing them. She skimmed the staff list. General Manager Hugh Dobson, 6 years on the job. Outdated hiring practices, poor guest ratings, 3 HR complaints swept under the rug. She flagged him. Receptionist, Callie Brenner, promoted internally. No complaints on file, but a troubling pattern in guest feedback. Selective, cold, inconsistent. Sabria leaned back. These weren't just names. These were signs. She opened the investment report. The acquisition would be public by the end of the week. The leverage was hers. The paperwork signed. All that was left was the walkthrough and the front desk. She closed her laptop and lay back. Her mind wandered, not just to today, but to years of moments just like it. Rooms that stiffened when she entered. Conversations that ended before she could speak. And still, she kept building. Her first deal was a rundown motel in Mississippi. The owner didn't believe in her, told her she was too young, too different. 2 years later, he offered her part ownership. She turned it down. Grit earned respect, not favors. A knock interrupted her thoughts. The Harwood manager stood outside, holding a mug. "Something warm," he said, smiling. "You looked like today was a lot." Sabria nodded. "You could say that." He paused. "Whatever it was, it won't follow you here. You're welcome." She took the tea and closed the door gently. That single act of kindness went deeper than all of Callie's dismissiveness. But Sabria wasn't finished. Tomorrow she wouldn't be asking for a key. She'd be holding every single one. Sabria never craved the spotlight. She didn't want to be a symbol, a spokeswoman, or anyone's inspiration. What she wanted, what she built, was ownership that didn't require applause. Quiet power, silent leverage. The kind of authority that didn't have to announce itself to be real. And she kept receipts. Not just paper trails or email chains, real receipts. Moments. Microaggressions dressed up as accidents. Dismissals disguised as misunderstandings. Like the time she walked into a meeting in Baton Rouge and was asked if she was there to cater. Or when a corporate attorney scanned her contract, then scanned her face and asked if she was sure she could handle the risk. She never lit those memories on fire. She kept them like matches in a box, unused, but never forgotten. The Belridge Regent was supposed to be just another acquisition, nothing personal, until Callie made it personal. Until she saw the woman's smile vanish the moment she looked at Sabria's face instead of her reservation. That subtle shift, from corporate politeness to casual dismissal, was all too familiar. Still, this wasn't about revenge. It was about alignment. Sabria's plan for the Belridge was already in motion. Streamline bloated operations, rebuild onboarding protocols, rebrand from the inside out, retain the staff who truly cared, restructure the roles where attitude had been valued more than experience. And the tone for all of it started today. She took a breath, opened her eyes, and got ready. A charcoal gray suit, simple silver studs, white blouse, no frills, low black flats, no noise, no makeup, just gloss. She pulled her braids into a low knot at the base of her neck. Before she left the room at the Harwood Inn, she set the metal key on the dresser and scribbled a short note. "Thank you for treating me like someone." Downstairs, the older man at the desk looked up as she passed. "You heading back out there?" he asked, half curious, half concerned. Sabria smiled. "Yep. Morning meeting." He gave a slow nod. "Hope they know who they're about to sit across from." She didn't reply, just gave a soft shrug and opened the door. Because today wasn't about being seen, it was about what happened when the doors closed behind her. The Belridge Regent looked the same that morning. Polished stone, trimmed hedges, a lobby that tried too hard to sell a luxury it barely delivered. But on paper, it was already someone else's. At 9:45 a.m., Sabria's car pulled up. No suitcase this time. No check-in. Just a slim black leather folder under her arm. She wasn't here as a guest. She was the new owner. Inside, just past the revolving door, a young man in a dark gray suit stood waiting. "Miss Varnell," he greeted. "I'm Quentin from legal. Your team's already in the lounge." "Thank you," she said. The same doorman from the night before held the door open. This time his gaze lingered. Recognition flickered, but he said nothing. Neither did she. As they passed the front desk, Callie was there, her head down, tapping on a screen while half listening to a call. But then, her eyes lifted. For one brief second, her face froze. Not fear, not guilt, just that stunned confusion people wear when their assumptions start to collapse. Sabria didn't stop. The executive lounge sat on the mezzanine. Glass doors, velvet chairs, and a tray of muffins nobody ever touched. Her team was already in place. Amina from strategy, Quentin from legal, two ops associates, and a transition officer from the bank. They stood as she entered. She motioned for them to sit. "Anything I need to see before we sign?" she asked. Quentin slid the paperwork across the table. The final liens cleared. Dobson's sign-off came through. The bank has issued the transition letter. Once you sign, Belridge officially transfers to Holden Finch. Sabria flipped to the summary page. She wasn't checking for mistakes. She was anchoring the moment. "Proceed," she said. She signed 5 copies, each signature deliberate. With every stroke, the hotel shifted hands, not just in name, but in intent. This building would no longer be led by people who equated Polish with purpose. It now belonged to someone who could see past the gold trim and right into the rot underneath. Quentin gathered the documents. "Do you want Dobson brought in?" 10 o'clock, Sabria replied, checking her watch. "Let him wait one more minute." The room fell quiet, not out of fear, but out of understanding. Everyone there knew how she worked. No theatrics, just purpose. She stood and walked to the window. Outside, valet staff moved cars without knowing everything above them had changed. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt ready. At 10:01, the doors opened. Hugh Dobson entered, mid-50s, face flushed, cufflinks too shiny, smile too rehearsed. He looked like a man used to power, not proximity to it. "Miss Varnell," he said, shaking her hand stiffly, "I understand congratulations are in order." She met his grip with just enough pressure to signal. This was not a courtesy. "That depends on how the next 2 weeks go," she replied. He laughed lightly like they were old friends. "I'll make sure the transition is smooth. My staff will cooperate fully." "That's not optional," she said plainly. "Let's sit." The meeting covered everything. Departmental audits, a full HR file review, shift management restructuring, revised guest services protocols. Sabria spoke with clarity. No threats, no fake charm, just expectations. Dobson interrupted once. "I don't think it's necessary to dig through old complaints," he said. "That kind of thing demoralizes staff." Sabria looked him dead in the eye. "What demoralizes staff is knowing nothing ever changes. The review stays." He didn't speak again. At 10:43, she stood. "Meeting's over." Her team would remain to begin onboarding. She walked out alone, the soft tap of her flats muffled by the carpet. Downstairs, the front desk had a new face. A young man, clearly nervous, who looked up but didn't speak. He didn't need to. She wasn't there for recognition. She was there to rebuild what had gone unquestioned for too long. And the ink on the deal, that was just the beginning. Sabria stepped through the main corridor of the Belridge Regent, not as a guest, not as a deal closer, but as the woman now responsible for every inch of it. Her footsteps were slow, deliberate, as she took in the space with a new gaze. She wasn't admiring the chandeliers or the floral arrangements. She was listening to the bones of the building, the creaks, the echoes, the quiet neglect. It all told a story. Behind her, Amina followed with a tablet, checking items off as they moved. The hallways were tidy but soulless, neutral tones, generic artwork, sterile like an airport lounge. "The lobby's still running on a system from 9 years ago," Amina murmured. "If you want check-in under 5 minutes, we'll need to move fast." "We will," Sabria replied. "But first, I want the right people in the right places. Tech can wait." She veered into the staff corridor. A porter paused as she passed, his eyes curious. He didn't know her yet, but he sensed she wasn't just passing through. There was something different in her stride, intentional, grounded. "Good morning," Sabria said. He hesitated, then nodded. "Morning, ma'am. How long have you been here?" 5 years, he replied. "Name's Terrence. Terrence Leal." "You like it here?" Terrence shrugged. "It's a job. Pays on time." Sabria gave a small smile. That was honesty, plain and familiar. "Well, Terrence, you'll be seeing some changes. If something's broken or hasn't worked in a while, write it down. Starting Monday, I'll be reading every note. His posture straightened. She continued, scanning as she walked. Scuffed walls, mismatched ceiling tiles, a faint odor in the staff lounge that clung to microwave cheese and long shifts. Then she stepped into the kitchen without warning. Cooks were prepping lunch trays. A sous chef dropped his spoon when he spotted her. An older cook called out, "Heads up, new boss just walked in." Sabria offered a nod. "Just looking." Moments later, Rosario Elman, the head chef, stepped out of the walk-in fridge. Late 50s, sleeves rolled, permanent scowl. "You the new owner?" he asked bluntly. "I am." He folded his arms. "You ever work a kitchen?" "No," Sabria said, "but I've worked in places where nobody expected much and still managed to rebuild the walls." Rosario blinked. The scowl softened. Barely. "Well," he muttered, "if you're here to fix what's broken, welcome. But if this is just another surface polish—" "I don't do polish," Sabria said. "I do people." She left the kitchen and turned toward the laundry wing. The air was warmer there, humid from the spinning machines. A woman emerged from a side door with a bin of towels, nearly bumping her cart into the wall. "Oh, sorry," she said, breathless. "Didn't see you there." "No problem," Sabria replied. "You work laundry?" 20 years, the woman said proudly. "Name's Minda." Sabria reached out and shook her hand. "Starting next week, Minda, you'll have new equipment, a rotating schedule, and, if I have my way, a raise. You've earned more than 20 years of being invisible." Minda blinked, surprised. "You really own the hotel." "I do." She looked like she had more to ask, but instead gave a small smile. "Thank you." Ms. Varnell Sabria stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the executive floor. Just before the doors closed, she saw Callie back at the front desk. Their eyes met. There was no malice in Callie's face, no arrogance either, just realization. Sabria wasn't here for revenge. She was here to open a door for those who'd never been allowed to step through one with both feet on equal ground. But before a culture could change, it had to be confronted. The meeting room was sleek, glass walls overlooking the skyline, a long polished table, untouched coffee station. Sabria sat at the head, calm, focused. At 1 p.m. sharp, Hugh Dobson walked in with Ron Felder, the quiet head of HR. Amina sat beside Sabria, tablet ready. "We're reviewing staff culture," Sabria began. "Specifically what's allowed to happen without consequence." Dobson cleared his throat. "I've already asked Ron to bring the onboarding documents." "I've read them," she interrupted. "Outdated, surface level, no tools for bias tracking or corrective feedback." Ron tried to speak, but Sabria raised a hand. "I'm not here to pick apart paperwork. I'm here because people like Callie represent this hotel. And right now, that image reflects exclusion." Dobson shifted. "With all due respect, Ms. Varnell, our guest satisfaction is high." "With certain guests," Sabria replied. "I watched a couple walk in after me last night and receive full service. Meanwhile, I was told the hotel was full, with my reservation in hand." Silence. "I don't want apologies. I want accountability." She slid a folder to Ron. Complaint logs, patterns, inconsistencies, all linked to Callie's tenure. Ron flipped through it. His face tensed. "I want her brought in," Sabria said. "Now?" Ron asked. "Now." Ron left. Dobson leaned in. "She's young. Sometimes it's just a lack of awareness." "Awareness isn't a license to gatekeep," Sabria said. "If she acts like this when people are watching, imagine when they're not." Callie entered minutes later, clearly nervous. "You remember me?" Sabria asked. Callie hesitated. "From last night. You said the hotel was full, that there was no record of my booking. I think it was a system error. I booked directly through your site, under Amina Travers, same as always." Callie looked to Dobson, then Ron, then back. "I didn't mean anything by it. I just followed protocol." "There was no protocol. You made a choice, and you made it in under 30 seconds. Callie stayed silent. "This isn't a firing," Sabria continued. "That would be too easy. This is realignment. Starting next week, you'll undergo training, 3 evaluations over 60 days. You'll shadow a senior concierge. You'll be reviewed not just on process, but on how people feel when they interact with you." Callie blinked. "That's it? You're not humiliating me." "I don't do that," I correct. You rise or step aside. Why give me a chance? Because change means rehabilitation, not just removal. Callie left, quiet but changed. Not grateful yet, but aware. Sabria turned to the table. From now on, every front-facing staff member completes respect before recognition training. 2 or more flag complaints? Reevaluated for retention. Understood? Dobson nodded. Ron added, we'll start tomorrow. Sabria stood. And one more thing. You don't build culture with slogans. You build it with boundaries. The shift wasn't announced with banners or buzzwords. It started subtly. The outdated training manual was replaced with a new booklet, each with a staff member's name printed on the cover. Inside, just one clear sentence. Who someone is matters more than how someone looks. Every day at 3 p.m., Sabria left her office door open for 30 minutes. No appointments needed. Terrence was the first to stop by. I see what you're doing, he said. Feels different already. Different how? People can breathe, not scared they're about to be replaced. It's like someone finally sees us. Minda visited too. She didn't sit down, just peeked in and said, that new folding table? First time my back didn't hurt before lunch. Thank you. Even Rosario gave a nod one afternoon. Supplies came in on time. First time in months. At the front desk, Callie returned, but no longer the lone gatekeeper. She now worked under a mentor, Phuong Tran, a veteran from luxury hotels around the country. Their first session was rocky, but Phuong was patient. She didn't scold. She guided. Would you speak that way if your job depended on it? She'd ask. Callie began to listen. Slowly she changed. One day, Sabria watched from a distance as a man in overalls and scuffed boots approached the desk. Callie smiled. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the Belridge. Do you have a reservation, or would you like help booking a room? Sabria said nothing. She just turned away and walked back to the elevator. 3 weeks in, the hotel hosted its first community event under new leadership, a scholarship fundraiser for local students interested in hospitality, business, and culinary arts. No press, no fanfare, just handwritten invitations to schools, families, and small business owners who had never set foot in the Belridge before. The ballroom looked different that night, not cheaper, just more human. String lights crisscrossed the ceiling, voices echoed with laughter, ambition, and pride. The old Belridge had been built on image. The new Belridge was built on identity. And this time, the doors weren't just open. They were held wide. The ballroom had never looked so alive. Crisp white tablecloths were folded with care. Every staff member dressed in sharp uniforms. New name tags proudly displaying their full names, not just initials. At the entrance, Minda greeted each guest with a warm smile. She'd volunteered for the role, saying she wanted to witness the night where the lights weren't just shining on chandeliers, but on people. Off to the side, Sabria watched quietly, arms crossed, eyes steady. She didn't need to be at the center. She was there to see. Young men in thrifted suits tried not to fidget. Parents gripped each other's hands just a little tighter than necessary. A janitor from a local high school shared a table with a banker, and no one acted like it was strange. Terrence found her near the buffet. You see who showed up? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Mayor's here. Sabria nodded. I saw. He's shaking hands like he paid for the building. Terrence smirked. You gonna say something? Let him shake, she said. This isn't his night. Later, a mic was passed to her, unplanned but anticipated. People wanted to hear not the CEO, not the woman in charge, but her, the person behind it all. Sabria stepped onto the stage in a charcoal dress and flats. No podium, just her and a mic. I'm not much for the spotlight, she began, her voice steady, so I'll keep it brief. I bought this hotel not because it was beautiful, but because it forgot how to treat people like they were. Silence followed, the kind filled with listening. I grew up in Dothan. My parents worked until they could barely stay awake at dinner. We didn't have luxury. We had labor. And the longer I worked in this industry, the more I noticed. The people who run the hotels are rarely the ones respected in them. She scanned the room. The kitchen crew had quietly stepped into the hallway. One of the students was scribbling notes furiously. So, I wanted to build something different, a place where the people who clean the floors, prep the food, and manage the check-ins don't just feel useful, they feel seen. She paused. Her voice stayed soft, but her words cut deep. Dignity doesn't come from job titles. It comes the moment someone walks through the door. A quiet ripple of applause swelled into something louder, but she didn't linger. Sabria stepped down, handed back the mic, and disappeared into the crowd. As the evening wound down, a young woman approached her. No older than 21, she wore a gray sweater dress and boots that looked like they belonged to someone else. She looked nervous but determined. "Miss Varnell, I'm Misha. I got one of the scholarships. I just wanted to say thank you." Sabria smiled. "What's your focus?"